I decided to revisit Pokemon Yellow, a game I hold dear to my childhood and still have my original cart for, as a Hardcore Nuzlocke challenge. While I haven't done a Hardcore Nuzlocke challenge before now, I thought it would be a fun way to both relive the old days and spice it up with something new. I made my own custom rule set for this challenge inspired by the channel P-Chal, formerly Pokemon Challenges, and it was very strict. There are many rules, so I'll only read the important ones. A complete list of the rules will be in the description below. I can only catch the first Pokemon in each area. If a wild Pokemon escapes, faints, or is ran from, then the encounter is lost for that area. I have to play in set mode and not shift mode. Rare candies are allowed in order to level up my Pokemon. I cannot level past the current level cap. Once I battled one trainer in an area, I have to defeat all trainers in that area back to back without healing in between. This means all optional trainers too. Healing items may not be used out of battle either, except for antidotes in games which have poison damage outside of battle. An area can be skipped to save the run, but if it is skipped, then the area must be done in combination with the next area without healing. 2 skips may not be used in a row. The Pikachu friendship bug is allowed. I tried to prepare myself as much as I could for the challenge beforehand by writing down all the encounters on each route and boss trainers' Pokemon. However, I did not know all of Gen 1's quirks and ended up fumbling a bit along the way. I started the Nuzlocke after I had already delivered Oak's parcel so that I could start going for encounters right away. There's a lot of level caps in this Nuzlocke, and the first one is level 8 for the second rival fight. Before fighting him, I first went to Route 1 and caught a Rattata, the first encounter of this run. I then caught a Nidoran female on Route 22, a Pidgey on Route 2, and a Caterpie in Viridian Forest. Before fighting the rival, I leveled my Pokemon up to level 8 using candies. Let's talk about stat experience in Gen 1. Every time you faint a Pokemon, your Pokemon gains what's called stat experience. It's similar to EVs in Generation 3 and above, but you can max out every stat without limits. Imagine if a Salamence had 252 EVs in every stat. That's kind of what it's like. This means that by using candies instead of grinding the traditional way, I'm making the game a little harder for myself while saving time. Going into the rival fight, I lead with Pikachu against his Spearow. Thundershock doesn't one-shot, but it misses with Growl and I'm able to easily defeat it with a second attack. Next out is Eevee, and I decide to hit it with a Thunder Wave for the potential para chance. This works as Eevee gets full para'd on the same turn. I then hit it with Thundershock, but it barely did any damage. It hits me with Sand Attack in retaliation. My next attack misses because of this, but the Eevee opts to use another non-damaging move. I hit another attack, but missed the next one and decide to stop trying to hit through the accuracy drops and switch to Rattata. The very first quick attack from Rattata crits to Eevee and secures me to win. This win raises my level cap to 12. With the rival beaten, I start the Viridian Forest Gauntlet. I initially had a slight bit of trouble because I was using Pidgey's Gust attack. I had forgotten that Gust is a normal type move in Gen 1 and was confused, but after realizing this, I made quick work of Viridian Forest without issue. When I get to Pewter City, I decide to level up all my Pokemon to level 11, one level under the level cap, but I make the mistake of mashing too fast when Pikachu is learning Quick Attack and accidentally get rid of Thundershock. I planned on relying on it for Misty, so this really sucked. I got some silver lining though as my Metapod evolved into Butterfree. Since there's only one trainer in Brock's gym, I didn't have to worry about not being able to heal. I had slight issue with the trainer, but I beat him without any losses and went to heal my team before fighting Brock. I lead with Butterfree against the Geodude because I know it doesn't have any rock type moves and easily defeat it with Confusion. When the Onix comes in, I use Confusion twice on it before switching to Nidoran because I had taken a Screech and was unsure of Butterfree's safety. Onix used Tackle on the switch, which didn't do much damage, and Nidoran was swiftly able to defeat it with 2 double kicks. With the first badge down, my level cap goes up to 17 for the Rival 3 fight. I immediately head right and start the Route 3 Gauntlet. Due to the first trainer having a Pidgey, I am reminded of my accidental deletion of Thundershock from Pikachu and I feel the pain of that right away. Despite this, none of the trainers on Route 3 posed any challenge and I was able to make it to the Mount Moon entrance quickly. Now, I could get the Magikarp as my Route 3 encounter, but I didn't want to because I felt like it would not be useful for a long time due to the level cap and due to another encounter I knew we would be getting later in Cerulean City. I end up catching a Spearow as my encounter for Route 3 and a Geodude as my encounter for Mount Moon. I decide to keep Geodude in my party over Spearow for the extra resistances. I don't struggle initially with the trainers, but each one gradually chips at my Pokemon's health until it starts becoming dangerous. With my Geodude at 5 health and most of my other Pokemon at less than half, I decided to employ a strategy I would be using for a lot of the early game. You see, while I'm not able to use healing items in or outside of battle during these gauntlets, I am allowed to level up my Pokemon as long as I don't go past the cap. I level my Geodude, Pikachu, and Rattata up to level 15 with a few rare candies so that they can survive more attacks. I eventually reached the last normal trainer and led with Geodude against him. Tackle takes up both the Zubat and Voltorb. However, Coughing poisons Geodude, so I am forced to switch to Pidgey. Pidgey gets poisoned too, but manages to take it out with 14 health to spare. With the battle against Jesse and James being the only thing between me and Cerulean City, I level up my Butterfree to level 15, but accidentally delete Confusion for Sleep Powder like I did for Pikachu Thundershock earlier. I got scared about my fight with such low health after making such a mistake, so I leveled up my Pokemon to level 16 so that they could maybe survive just one more hit. This causes my Nidoran to evolve into Nidorina before the fight. I'm then able to immediately evolve my Nidorina into Nidoqueen by using a Moonstone I found on Mount Moon. Before heading into the next battle, I decided to take the Helix fossil. I wouldn't end up using it, but I know someone would ask if I didn't say which one I took. Leading Butterfree, who has the most health currently in my party, I go into the Jesse and James fight. Due to me replacing Confusion with Sleep Powder, I can't immediately take out Ekans and instead put him to sleep. With the Ekans asleep, I have Butterfree use Tackle 5 times, knocking it out. Meowth comes in and I use Tackle again, but it outspeeds me and uses Scratch. Thinking that it moves first, I try to use Sleep Powder so I can wail on it like I did to the Ekans. However, this turned out to be a misplay as Meowth used Bite, got a critical hit, and took out Butterfree as my first death of the run. I send out Nidoqueen next, and give Meowth outspeed still, it can't take out Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen easily feints to Meowth with a double kick. The last Pokemon out is Coughing, and I decide to stay in. This turns out to be a good play as Smog does minimal damage to Nidoqueen. After using Scratch for a while, I secured a victory. Before heading into Cerulean City, I grabbed the TM from Mega Punch on Route 4. Sadly, I had to say goodbye to Butterfree once I reached the Pokemon Center. Bye bye, Butterfree! I replaced Butterfree with Spearow, and I caught a Mankey on Route 4, which I forgot about so often that I ended up accidentally catching another one later. I didn't use the second one though. I level up all my Pokemon to 17 and go to fight Rival 3. My rival thins out Spearow and I send out Geodude. Geodude now has Rock Throw, so it's an easy one-hit KO. Sandshrew comes out next, and I miss a couple of Rock Throws before realizing Tackle does roughly the same amount of damage against Sandshrew, and use that instead. After missing 4 too many times, I managed to hit the Sandshrew twice to take it out. Next comes Rattata, and one Rock Throw gets the KO. With the last Pokemon, Eevee, now out, I switched to Nidoqueen and used Double Kick twice for the win. With Rival 3 defeated and our level cap raised to 20, I looked forward to Route 24. Route 24 was the gauntlet with Nugget Bridge, and I was not as prepared as I thought I was for Nugget Bridge. Before heading over, I boxed my Pidgey and picked up the Bulbasaur in Cerulean City as my encounter. For those who don't know, you can get Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle in Pokemon Yellow by interacting with NPCs throughout the game. In order to get Bulbasaur, you must have a high friendship value with your partner Pikachu. It's easy to get your partner Pikachu to max friendship due to a bug. All you have to do is use a healing item, such as a potion, on Pikachu when it's at max health. The game will say it has no effect, but it will still raise their friendship level. Using this, I can get the Bulbasaur immediately. I level up the Bulbasaur to level 17, evolving it into Ivysaur, and start to take on the Nugget Bridge. First trainer goes down without me taking any damage thanks to Geodude. The next trainer's Pidgey goes down easily. They sent out the Nidoran next, so I switched to Spearow to knock it out with a double kick. I tried using Fury Attack, but I missed the first time and took a bit of damage. I choose the correct option next time, but get growled at twice. I go back to Geodude, hoping that Double Kick won't do that much damage, but it does, so I pivot to Spearow. 2 pecks get me to win. I keep Geodude in front for the third trainer, which sends out Rattata, but Geodude gets crit by a Hyper Fang. I switch to Nidoqueen so Geodude doesn't take any more damage and KO'd a Rattata with a Double Kick. Nidoqueen is quickly able to take out the following Ekans, but I switch to Pikachu after seeing how much damage she takes from Leech Life. Pikachu feints to Zubat with little issue, and the third battle is won. I lead a fourth battle with Rattata, and I'm able to take out the foe's Pidgey quickly. Since Rattata got hit with 2 sand attacks, I switch to Nidoqueen. After being growled at a fair bit, Nidoqueen stops doing fair damage, so I pivot to Pikachu and then back to Nidoqueen after attacking once. Nidoqueen then finishes the battle with ease. The 5th trainer sends out Mankey first, and I switch to Ivysaur to avoid damage. After using Leech Seed, I tackle twice, only to be critical hit by Karate Chop. After being hit by that, I foolishly switched to Spearow because I had mixed up Dark type with Poison type and thought that Low Kick would be super effective against my Nidoqueen. Not only do fighting moves hit Poison neutrally, but Dark type wasn't even introduced until Generation 2. The Mankey uses Karate Chop again, getting another critical hit and fainting my Spearow. I then send Rattata in, expecting to outspeed. Rattata gets hit with a Low Kick and also faints. Finally, I make the correct play and switch in Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen takes a fair amount of damage from the Mankey getting another critical hit with Low Kick, then KOs with 2 attacks. With 2 fainted Pokemon, I continued on to the Team Rocket battle. Nidoqueen swept through their team without issue. I put Pikachu in the lead and challenged the last trainer of the route. I start by using Thunder Wave for the speed advantage, and the foe's Rattata uses Hyper Fang, which nearly KOs Pikachu. Luckily, it wasn't a crit. I switched to Geodude, which still has half health, and beat the Rattata with Rock Throw and Tackle. The next Pokemon meets the same fate, and with that, I have beaten the Route 24 Gauntlet. After releasing Rattata and Spearow, I withdrew my Pidgey. I then went back to Route 24 to get Charmander from an NPC to fill in my last slot. Even though it's a gift Pokemon, it still counts as my encounter for that route. I bring Charmander up to level 17, evolving it into a Charmeleon in the process. Moving on to Route 25, I'm able to take on the first trainer without much issue. I put Pikachu in the front and move on to the second, who sends out Rattata. Remember when I was thankful Hyper Fang didn't crit? Well, it crit this time, and obliterated my Pikachu, killing it dead. Thankfully, I make the correct judgment afterwards and switch to Geodude to finish off the Rattata and Spearow that come out next. This is why you always play around a crit. The next couple of trainers don't go so well, as all my Pokemon but Geodude get put into low health. The following one goes fine, but after defeating 2 Geodude from the next hiker, my Ivysaur is just one hit from fainting. I switch into Nidoqueen on a Machop, but end up getting a critical hit Karate Chop. This brings my Nidoqueen down to 3 health and forces me to switch again. Underestimating how much damage I would take, I switch to Pidgey and eat another critical hit Karate Chop. Pidgey survives, but I decide to sack Pidgey in order to get another Pokemon in. After one last gust, Pidgey is taken out by another Karate Chop. It wouldn't be until writing the script that I found out Karate Chop has an 8 times critical hit rate. Never realizing that sending out Geodude was probably the answer, I send in Ivysaur and use Vine Whip twice to beat the Machop. Following Geodude, it gets one-shot by Vine Whip to win the battle. With 2 Mons down and 3 at low health, I make the decision to level up my Charmeleon to level 19 in hopes of surviving another hit. Start the next battle by switching out my Charmeleon to avoid Hyper Fang, and I am able to take out the opposing Rattata with a Rock Throw. The Ekans that comes in is then able to spam Wrap, which restricts the user from moving in Gen 1 to stop my Geodude from attacking completely due to the speed advantage. They then proc Poison with Poison Sting, and I decide to switch the Ivysaur. Ivysaur gets me to KO with Tackle. Geodude and Ivysaur easily take on the last 2 remaining trainers. Then have to make the trek back to the Pokemon Center to release Pidgey and Pikachu. When I go to release Pikachu, I find out I can't release it because it looks unhappy about it. I do release it later using an outside tool, but I'd like to imagine there was just a ghost of a Pikachu haunting my box. I withdrew Mankey and went back up to Route 25 for my encounter there. I catch an Oddish before heading down to Misty's gym. I easily sweep through the gym's trainers with Oddish and then go heal. I planned to take on Misty solely with Ivysaur after losing Pikachu, but I had to make a change of plans because I accidentally leveled up Ivysaur to level 21 using rare candies while leveling to the cap. After putting Ivysaur in a box, I challenged Misty with Oddish as my lead. First thing I did was put Staryu to sleep, and because they didn't wake up, I was able to KO them with 3 absorbs. Next out is Starmie, and after they missed Tackle, I was able to put them to sleep as well. They woke up after a 4th absorb, but they used Tackle again, so I was able to secure the victory with a 5th. After the battle, my Oddish evolves into a Gloom. Getting the second badge does not raise our level cap. I will have to keep using level 20 Pokemon until I defeat Rival 4. This means I cannot use Ivysaur or Gloom, who have reached level 20, until then. This also means my party is now only 4 large. I encountered a Yabra on Route 5, but I'm unable to capture it and it teleports away. After battling 2 trainers on Route 6, I decide to skip it for now. That means I must do the rest of it in combination with the next route. Now in Vermilion City, I go to the Fishing Guru and obtain the Old Rod. I use this to catch Magikarp as my Route 6 encounter. Afterwards, I head to Diglett Cave and catch a Diglett as my encounter there, and a Drowsy as my Route 11 encounter. After doing this, I level up my Pokemon to the cap of 20 to take on Rival 4. This is a perfect level cap for having Magikarp, as I can get a Gyarados immediately. Now on to SSN, I made a beeline for my rival. I lead with Charmeleon against his Spearow and KO it without taking damage. Next up is Rattata, and Charmeleon takes it out with 2 Embers. Sandshrew is then sent in, and it meets the same fate. Finally, Eevee comes in, and I switch to Mankey to hit it with a fighting type move. I had forgotten that Karate Chop was a normal type move in Gen 1 and used that first, but it wasn't a problem as I had Low-Kick. After missing a couple of times, I land a hit and secured a win, raising the level cap from 20 to 25. After depositing Mankey and Diglett into the PC, I take out Ivysaur and Geodude now that I can use them again. I then decided to take on the SSN Gauntlet. The first trainer goes well, but my Geodude loses half their health against the next trainer's Nidoran. If things weren't going bad already, the third trainer brings my Charmeleon's health down to half. And the fourth? Well, just look and see. Remember earlier when I said, you always play around a crit? This is yet another prime example as why you should do that. Ivysaur sweep through most of the sailors on the lower floor, but their health gets pretty low. I get Gyarados and Nidoqueen to do the rest. I also find the TM for rest on this floor and teach it to Nidoqueen. Any healing moves are good for this challenge because of the limited healing. Nidoqueen and Drowsy made short work of the remaining trainers on the ship, finishing the gauntlet for me. I go and release my Charmeleon in the Pokemon Center, and then go up to do Route 6 and 11's combined gauntlets. I probably should have done Route 6 was to SSN, but I had already forgotten by the time I went to heal. Oops. None of the trainers on either route proved difficult though, and I was able to clear both routes back to back with ease. Before fighting Lieutenant Surge, I had to teach the Cut TM to someone in order to get past the tree. I ended up teaching it to Diglett because I thought they might be useful against the gym trainers, and I didn't need many move slots for them. I easily defeat the gym trainers, but I can't say the same about the trash puzzle. It takes me 2 minutes at 3 times speed in order to guess the correct cans. I made the decision to take on Lieutenant Surge only Pokemon with my Geodude without leveling it to the cap with confidence that the Raichu couldn't do much to it. After landing a couple rock throws though, I'm forced to switch after a Mega Punch crits. Mega Kick lands on my Switchin, Ivysaur, and I'm forced to pivot to Nidoqueen who easily KOs with Body Slam. With Lieutenant Search defeated, I now have 3 badges. However, my level cap is not increased because I still have to face Rival Fivel in the Pokemon Tower. Before continuing, I get a Squirtle from the NPC in Vermilion City. I could technically guarantee a Staryu encounter here later, but I can get Staryu in a few different places, and I think Squirtle will be helpful in the short term. I also deposit Nidoqueen, who is at the level cap, so they don't overlevel before the next rival fight. I take out Gloom in their place. Once I get to Route 9, I easily break through the trainers on the way to Rock Tunnel. I catch a Nidoran male on Route 9, and a Magnemite on Route 10. Before entering Rock Tunnel, I switch out my Ivysaur and Diglett for my Nidoran and Magnemite. I also teach my Magnemite Flash for easier navigation, and level up the duo to level 20. I can then use a Moonstone to immediately get a Nidoking. Venturing into Rock Tunnel for my encounter, I catch a Zubat that will never leave the PC. I ran into a bit of trouble with the first trainer's Slowpoke. Since Slowpoke is fairly bulky and has a Psychic type move, it does solid damage to my team and I don't have a good answer for taking it out. Did manage to take it out, but only after suffering big damage to Drowsy and Geodude. The next trainer also has a Slowpoke, but I take it out much faster by switching to Gyarados right away. I have Nidoking take on one of the 2 trainers, and he receives a fair bit of damage. In order to keep using him throughout Rock Tunnel, I use a couple rare candies on him to raise his health and stats. But just a couple of fights later, Nidoking gets crit twice and has to switch. This spooks me a little, so I level up my fully healthy Magnemite to 22 in case I need to use it. A few trainers later, a Hiker gives me some trouble by putting my Drowsy into red health, which means I most likely can't use him for the rest of the area. The very next trainer lowers my Magnemite's health by half, which puts the entire team in jeopardy. While Gloom still has maximum health thanks to Absorb, they are at the level cap and have been gaining lots of experience. I don't want them to gain too much experience and go over the cap. Lo and behold, the very next battle has my Gloom over leveling to level 26. Now I'm really in danger. While Gyarados solos the next 3 trainers, things are not looking good for the health of the team. Due to this, I opted to use rare candies again to get my Magnemite to level 24. After a close call with my Geodude and some Rattata, I go to the next and last battle with Magnemite in the front, only to miss Sonic Boom. I have no choice but to switch to Gyarados for the battle, and it ends up working well. After the first 2 enemy Pokemon faint, I send out Geodude. The enemy Pidgey, however, lands a critical hit that leaves Geodude with just 3 hit points. This forces me to switch back to Gyarados, who luckily doesn't take another hit and closes out the battle. With this, I made it out of Rock Tunnel and I skillfully dodged the trainers of Route 10 to get to Lavender Town. Now, it's time to fight our rival again. I deposit Gloom and Magnemite into my PC in exchange for Ivysaur and Nidoqueen. I teach Gyarados TM12, Water Gun, that I picked up on Mount Moon. Finally, right before heading into Pokemon Tower, I level up my team to the level cap, which causes Geodude to evolve into Graveler. My rival leads with Fearow and I lead with Graveler. My first and second Rock Throw land, knocking out Fearow. Next comes Shelter, and I switch to Ivysaur. Ivysaur is hit with Supersonic on the switch, but I hit through the confusion with a Vine Whip. A second Vine Whip knocks out Shelter, and out comes our rival's Vulpix. I switch to Gyarados and easily knock it out with Water Gun. The Sandshrew that comes in afterwards meets the same fate. Finally, with Eevee coming in, I switch to Nidoking and KO it with 2 double kicks. With our rival defeated, our level cap is raised to 29 for the first Giovanni fight. Before continuing further, I deposit Gyarados into the PC box in order to save levels, as I thought I would need to conserve them later. Squirtle, having been evolved into Wartortle, takes a place on my team after being candied to level 22. I also deposit Nidoking and Ivysaur from Mankey and Gloom, and now return to Route 10 and clear up the trainers without issue. I similarly have no problems with Route 8 and clear it quickly. My encounter for Route 8 is Jigglypuff, and I don't have any trouble with the capture. However, the same can't be said for my Route 7 encounter. I find an Abra and accidentally try to run. Not only do I fail to escape, but it teleports away. For some reason, the Abra wanted me to stay just so it could clown on me for running away anyways. In Celadon City, I go and get the Eevee from the back of the building as my encounter. My overlay was slightly broken at this point, but I wouldn't notice and fix that until quite a bit later. I then go to the Rocket Hideout in the game corner and begin the gauntlet. First few trainers are an easy sweep with Nidoking, but I lock in Thrash on a trainer with a Drowsy and they put me to sleep. As I was locked into Thrash, I cannot switch Pokemon until the duration of it is over. Luckily, the enemy trainer uses Disable instead of Confusion, which lets my Nidoking knock it out after waking up. The last turn of Thrash KOs the incoming Machop, winning us the battle. I switch Nidoking, who was hurting for health, off of the first slot of my party afterwards. The next trainer to give us some trouble leads with Eradicate, and I miss Rock Throw with Graveler 5 times in a row before having to KO it with Tackle. I switch in Drowsy, thinking Dig will be a one-shot, but it's just short of it, and Diglett is brought down to 10 HP. Since I outsped, I used Dig again to secure the kill and the battle. The very next battle has Wartortle dropping to low health as well, putting 4 of my Pokemon into the yellow. The final battle before Giovanni is with Jesse and James, and they send out Coughing on my weakened Wartortle. After a turn 1 poison on Wartortle, I switch to Graveler. Graveler is able to take out Coughing with Tackle, but gets poisoned as well. I switch to Gloom on Meowth and easily take it out with Absorb. When the last Pokemon, Ekans, comes out, I switch to Nidoqueen and take it out with Mega Punch. Since Giovanni counts as a boss battle, I go and heal my Pokemon before fighting him. I ended up depositing Diglett due to its lackluster performance and replacing it with Ivysaur. I lead with Gloom against Giovanni's Onix and KO easily with Absorb. The Rhyhorn that comes out next also falls to Absorb. Version comes out third, and I land a Sleep Powder on it, then switch to Nidoking. Just 2 double kicks later, Giovanni is defeated, and we can raise our level cap to 32 for Erica. I had planned to use Charmeleon for Erica, but since they were gone I had to think of another solution. After doing a little research, I found out that Flareon learns Ember at level 31 in Red and Blue, and decided to evolve my Eevee into Flareon just for that. I deposited Ivysaur, Gloom, and Wartortle for Eevee, Diglett, and Drowsy. I then go to the Celadon department store, buy a Firestone, and evolve my Eevee into Flareon. I enter Erica's gym and begin fighting the trainers. While I don't have too many problems with them, all of them seem to be using Stun Spore and Wrap. This is an annoying combination because it lets them use Wrap repeatedly on my Pokemon due to them being slower from paralysis. Flareon proves useful using Quick Attack not to be Wrap locked after most of my team gets paralyzed. Drowsy evolves into Hypno after one of the battles. Before fighting Erica, I decide to deposit Graveler and withdraw my Gyarados. I then level up all my Pokemon to level 30 and take a quick look at the wiki, only to realize that in Pokemon Yellow in particular, Flareon's moveset has changed and they now learn Ember at level 16. This means that my Flareon can't learn a Fire-type move until level 36, where they learned a very unreliable Fire Spin. This sort of made the Flareon obsolete for the one place they would have otherwise been most useful, but I decided to keep them in my party for the fight anyways. Leveling my Pokemon up to the cap, Diglett evolved into Dugtrio. I lead the Erica fight with Nidoqueen, and get a paralysis off on the first turn with Body Slam. After taking a couple Mega Drains, I switch to Gyarados because I'm not confident Nidoqueen could survive a crit. One Dragon Rage knocks a Tangela out, and Erica sends out Weeping Bell. After taking a Stun Spore, I switch to Hypno and use Confusion for a quick KO. Confusion doesn't quite one-shot the incoming Gloom, and I get hit with Sleep Powder. After 2 turns of Petal Dance, I decide it's time to switch out and pivot Gyarados on the 3rd turn of Petal Dance. Gyarados is fully paralyzed on the next turn, so I switch to Flareon. Flareon finishes off the Gloom with 1 bite to win the battle. With Erica defeated, our level cap is increased to 36 for the Karate Master. Now, with my overlay finally fixed, I go to Route 16 to get the Fly HM and I catch a Doduo. I replace my Flareon with Ivysaur in PC, and they evolve into Venusaur while leveling them up. Now in Saffron, I head straight for the Fighting Dojo and begin the Gauntlet. Hypno easily sweeps through all 4 trainers with Confusion. Feeling confident, I decide to fight the Karate Master without healing. Hypno one-shots to Hitmonlee after they use Meditate, and does the same to the Hitmonchan after they use Comet Punch to secure us a very easy victory. I decided not to take Hitmonchan or Hitmonlee, so I could get a different encounter in Saffron later. My level cap is now increased to 38 for Rival 6. After healing my Pokemon, I deposit my Dugtrio for Graveler, head over to the Pokemon Tower, and catch a Ghastly. I decided to put Ghastly, who I then evolve into a Haunter, in my team over Nidoking. I then teach Haunter to TM from Mega Drain, which I got from defeating Erica. Afterwards, I take on the Pokemon Tower Gauntlet. I have no trouble with the trainers on the 1st floor, but the first trainer on the 2nd floor was different. Their Ghastly uses Confuse Ray on my Graveler and it hits itself in Confusion. To not take more damage, I switch to Gyarados. Ghastly uses Confuse Ray as I switch in, and Gyarados hits itself in Confusion. Not wanting to deal with that, I switch back to Graveler, who comes in on a Nightshade. Ghastly moves first to use Confuse Ray again, but Graveler misses the Rock Throw. Now that I'm confused again, I switch back to Gyarados, only for the opposing Ghastly to use Lick and get the paralysis. After attacking once with Water Gun, Gyarados gets full parried. I switch from Venusaur to another Confuse Ray and hit myself in Confusion yet again. I decided to make yet another switch back to Gyarados. After tanking a Nightshade, Gyarados gets confused yet again and hurts itself. I switch in my Nidoqueen and she gets confused as well. Finally done with these shenanigans, I switch in Hypno and kill with Confusion. Some of the worst RNG I've had in days. I obliterate the next Ghastly with another Confusion and end the battle. I easily cleared the rest of the trainers up until the healing pad. As I'm unable to progress without touching it, I am forced to heal there before fully clearing the area. I don't heal for the rest of the tower though. Once I reach a Marowak, I send out Venusaur and get a quick one-shot with Wratherleaf. On the top floor, I run into Jesse and James again and they challenge me to a battle. I one-shot their Meowth with a Wratherleaf from Venusaur and pivot to Nidoqueen for the Arbok. 2 Body Slams take out the Arbok, and 4 take out the Weaving for another EV victory. With the Pokeflute now in hand, I decide to take on the Route 12 Gauntlet to catch a Snorlax at the end. None of the trainers do much of anything to my Venusaur because it outspeeds and one-shots with Razor Leaf. When I encounter a Snorlax, I weaken it with Venusaur and Hypno, and I am then able to easily catch it with a Great Ball I found earlier. While finishing the route, I grabbed a Super Rod from the Fishing Guru. I will catch a very good Pokemon with this later. After buying some more Great Balls, I fly to Viridian City using Doduo and catch a Poliwag using the Super Rod. I then deposit Doduo, whom I had previously deposited Haunter for my Snorlax. With my team assembled, I go into the Saffron Rocket hideout and begin one of the longest gauntlets in the game. I let Graveler take on the first few trainers, and then switch to Gyarados once Graveler started to hurt for health. Gyarados takes on the next batch of trainers while taking minimal damage in between each one. Once Gyarados reaches a bit below half health, I switch to Nidoqueen because I think Gyarados is in crit range. A few trainers later, I tried to use Rest on a Machop, but failed because of paralysis, so I switched to Venusaur. I try to rest again on the next trainer, but the foe Zubat uses Confuse Ray and my Nidoqueen hits themselves in confusion, so I'm forced to switch to Snorlax. I lose a decent amount of health on Lax due to Confusion's RNG, but I managed to take it out, and I put Snorlax in front. After the next trainer, I opt to put Venusaur in front because Snorlax Headbutt only has 5 power points left. After a trainer's Electrode uses Self-Destruct on my Venusaur, I have to put Hypno in front as it's my only remaining Pokemon that's healthy. However, I am forced to switch back to another Pokemon when I realize Hypno is at the level cap. Just a few trainers later, my fear comes to life when Hippo levels up to level 39. This means I cannot use it for the rest of the gauntlet or for the upcoming rival fight. After a few close calls, I manage to beat all the trainers I can access before my rival. Since the rival is a boss fight, I am allowed to heal before I face him. Feeling confident I can win with 5 Pokemon, since Hypno is overleveled, I go to fight my rival with Graveler as my lead. I was expecting Fearow, so when Sandslash comes in first, I switch to Venusaur. Venusaur quickly takes the Sandslash out, and my rival sends out Ninetales. Then Gyarados, and it easily takes care of the Ninetales, but Gyarados hits itself in confusion when fighting a Cloyster that comes in afterwards. I respond to this by sending Venusaur back in to finish a Cloyster with Razor Leaf. The rival's ace, Kadabra, is up next. Venusaur and Kadabra trade a Razor Leaf and a Psybeam, with both dipping below half health from the exchange. I then switch to Snorlax, who tanks 2 attacks from Kadabra and KOs with a Headbutt. Finally, the Jolteon comes in. I keep Snorlax in and use Headbutt again, but before I can, I am hit by Jolteon's Double Kick. I forgot that it had that move, and my Snorlax would have been cooked if that had been a crit. I then switch in Graveler and make a huge mistake. Go for Rock Throw instead of Earthquake, and it doesn't kill. Switching to Nidoqueen, the Jolteon hits me with a critical hit Pin Missile as if it knows what I'm going to do. In fact, it does know what I'm going to do. Let's talk a little bit how the AI works in older Pokemon games. In most Pokemon games, both you and the NPC trainer use your moves at the same time, with the NPC trainer not being able to see what you picked. This can help you make quick pivots to multiple Pokemon so that you can play around scary moves. However, in the Gen 1 games, first you make your moves and then the AI makes theirs based on the actions you do. I've heard this is called cheat AI before, and you see it in arcade games like Mortal Kombat 2.
When fighting against a human opponent, the game's code will read your inputs and react to them instantly.
A good example of this would be trainers using potions on the same turn you get your Pokemon to red health, or Pokemon like Alakazam spamming recover at the perfect time each time you damage them. This also lets the AI pick a move based on what Pokemon you switch into, so the foe's Jolteon used Pin Missile as my Nidoqueen came in because the AI knew that it would be a super effective move against him after I had already taken my turn. With all my Pokemon now in low health, I have to do the thing everyone playing a Nuzlocke dreads, choosing which Pokemon to sack. I could send in Graveler because he's the least useful, but I knew Double Kick would immediately kill. Pin Missile has a chance to miss on Venusaur, but it would have to have missed twice in a row because Venusaur was slower. In hindsight, I should have sacked Graveler, but I chose to hold on to some hopium that Gyarados would survive the incoming Thundershock. Gyarados did not, in fact, survive the quad-effective attack, and I had to say goodbye to Gyarados right there and then. Rest in peace, Gyarados, you carried this fight. With Gyarados' sacrifice, I was able to get in Venusaur safely. I was positive none of my Pokemon, including Venusaur, could survive another hit, so I banked on Pin Missile missing. I was lucky, and Pin Missile did miss, letting me secure the finisher on Jolteon and win the battle. Just one misplay, not using Earthquake, cost me a good Pokemon. With Rival 6 defeated, our level cap is raised to 40 for the second Giovanni fight, allowing us to use Hypno again. I go to the Pokemon Center to say my last goodbyes to Gyarados and heal my team. Once I go back, I pick up the Lapras from the man in the same room, which is my Saffron City encounter. Lapras is no Gyarados, but they are still a powerful Pokemon. Lapras will have to prove themselves if they want to be a staple of my team like Gyarados was. Before fighting Giovanni, I have to fight Jesse and James for the last time. However, they proved to be even more of a joke than earlier, as Graveler swooped through their team with 3 Earthquakes. At last, we are fighting Giovanni. I led Lapras against his Nidorino to hit with a powerful Ice Beam. It doesn't quite kill though, so I switched to Hypno to finish it with Confusion. Next up is Persian, which goes down to 1 Psychic. Rhyhorn comes in next, and another Psychic takes them out. Finally, Giovanni sends out Nidoqueen. Surprisingly, this Nidoqueen survives Hypno Psychic. This isn't nearly enough though, as it is promptly taken out the next turn. This wins us the battle and raises our level cap to 47 for Koga. Now it's time for the Route 13 Gauntlet on the way to Fushka City. Since none of the trainers post any challenge, I decided to take on the Route 14 Gauntlet as well without healing. Once we make it to Route 15, I catch a Venonat in the grass and continue to take on the trainers. Since we are so powerful, we barely take any damage in the trainer battles. With all the trainers in Route 13, 14, and 15 defeated, I head into Fushka City and grab the Good Rod from the Fishing Guru. I used the Good Rod to catch a Goldeen in a pond outside, thus securing my Fushka City encounter. I then venture back to Route 14 to catch a Weepin' Bell, and Route 13 to catch a Farfetch'd. Heading into the Safari Zone, I have a plan. Using the Super Rod, there is a 20% chance to encounter a Dratini in one of the water spots. This spot only has Magikarp and Dratini as encounters if you use the Super Rod. Dragonite would make a great Pokemon for the Elite Four, and I am guaranteed to encounter one since I had already gotten a Magikarp before. While there are many great encounters in the Safari Zone, I would definitely go with the one that was guaranteed. After just 4 fishing attempts, I encountered what I was looking for, a level 10 Dratini. Now I don't know how the Safari Zone AI works in Gen 1, but the Dratini does not seem to run away at all as it lets me chuck 13 Safari Balls at it before finally being captured. This is great, as Dragonite is a Pokemon with high base stats I can use in the Elite Four. While they don't get any stab bonuses since the only Dragon-type move in Gen 1 is Dragon Rage, they still learn a nice variety of moves that deal good damage. After grabbing the HM for Thurf and the Gold Teeth, I head out of the Safari Zone to challenge Koga without making any changes to my team. I easily take out the gym trainers, quickly heal, and then challenge Koga with Graveler as my lead. Koga's Venonat outspeeds and uses Sleep Powder before pelting me with Psychics. Even after it wakes up, Graveler misses Rock Throw and gets put right back to sleep. After taking a crit, I switched out Graveler for Snorlax. Snorlax easily takes out the Graveler along with the next 2. One of the Venonat managed to get a special drop on Snorlax, so I pivot into Lapras when a Venomoth comes in. Venomoth uses Toxicon to switch, which is scary, but we managed to freeze the Venomoth immediately with Ice Beam. After that, the battle is essentially won, and we take out the Venomoth without resistance, securing us the 5th gym badge and raising our level cap to 50 for Sabrina. Before heading to Sabrina, I deposit Nidoqueen, Graveler, and Venusaur for Dugtrio, Dratini, and Wartortle. I then caught Staryu on Route 19 and effortlessly beat every trainer there. Afterwards, I go to the power plant to catch a Voltorb. Now it's time to prepare for Sabrina's gym, but the only prep I needed was evolving Dratini into Dragonair and Wartortle into Blastoise. I run into no problems with the gym trainers and go into the Sabrina fight with Dragonair up front. I started using Agility with the Abra out to give myself the Badge Boost glitch since the Abra could only use Flash. The Badge Boost glitch is too hard for me to explain properly, so I would recommend checking out
SSTB
video on it, which will be linked in the description. After setting up, I realized quickly that I shouldn't have been relying on Slam, a 75% accuracy move, to sweep since I was already getting accuracy drops from Abra. Slam does one-shot the Abra, but Sabrina sends a Kadabra next and uses an X-Defend. This makes Slam not HKO, but I outspeed it and finish with Wrap. Finally, the Alakazam comes in. Due to Slam missing again though, Sabrina is able to use another X-Defend on Alakazam. The AI read my move, and they are able to have Alakazam immediately use Recover on the turn Slam hits. This means I can't break through the Alakazam without a crit, since in Gen 1, NPC trainers never run out of power points. Due to Slam continually missing, the Alakazam is able to set up a barrier and use Psychic, which brings Dragonair all the way down to 4 health. I switch to Snorlax, so Dragonair doesn't faint, and I use Body Slam until Alakazam is taken out. With this, I have beaten Sabrina and raised the level cap to 52 for Blaine. I catch a Tentacool on Route 21 and head over to Cycling Road to catch a Ponyta. After easily clearing all the trainers, I head into the grass and encounter my Ponyta. I put it to sleep and tried to throw a ball, but I got the message, the Pokemon box is full, can't use that item. I had never gotten this message in Gen 1 before, and I thought that meant I couldn't catch any more Pokemon, period. I wouldn't realize that I had to change my box until much later. After losing my encounter, I made it to Cinnabar Island and went through Pokemon Mansion to get the secret key while using Repels, so I didn't encounter any Pokemon. None of the trainers in Pokemon Mansion pose any issues, and I am able to grab the secret key and leave without running out of repels. I go to deposit Doduo, which had replaced Venusaur for a while so I could use Fly, and I realize I am unable to deposit or withdraw Pokemon. This was because I didn't switch the box, but I didn't know that at this point and assumed I would have to do the rest of the game with the party I had on hand. I evolved Doduo into Dodrio before heading into Blaine's gym. Due to having both Lapras and Blastoise in my party, none of the trainers stand a chance against me. I led with Lapras into the Blaine fight. The opposing Ninetales outspeeds and goes for Confuse Ray, which I am able to hit through with Hydro Pump. Ninetales survives the attack with just a sliver of health. I switched to Blastoise so that Lapras doesn't have to deal with confusion and finished him off with Water Gun. Next comes in Rapidash, who outspeeds Blastoise and goes for Fire Spin. After the attack ends, Rapidash lands a critical hit Stomp, which puts Blastoise into death range if another crit happens, so I pivot to Lapras. Rapidash hits Lapras with Takedown twice, and I miss my Hydro Pump, so I shift back to Dragonair into another Fire Spin from Rapidash. After paralyzing Rapidash with Thunder Wave, I use Agility once for the badge boost, and then attack with Slam. Slam does not feint them, so I switch to Snorlax to avoid a potential crit. One headbutt from Snorlax gets the KO. Blaine then sends in his ace, Arcanine, but I easily take it out with 2 body slams from Snorlax, securing us a 7th gym badge, but keeping our level cap at 52 for the final Giovanni fight. I immediately head over to the Viridian City gym and start battling the trainers inside. As per usual, the trainers inside are a joke, and I easily wipe them all out before heading up to Giovanni. I lead with Blastoise against his Dugtrio and immediately get hit with a critical hit Dig when I try to set up with Withdrawal. I switch into Lapras and kill with Hydro Pump. I take out Persian with a couple Ice Beams and decide on a whim to pivot to Dodrio once Nidoqueen comes in. On my switch, it gets hit with a Thunder that almost KOs it, so I have to switch back to Snorlax, only to get crit twice by Double Kick. Not wanting to sack Snorlax, I switch again to Hypno, who proceeds to KO Nidoqueen with Confusion and Nidoking that comes in with Psychic. With the final Pokemon, Rhydon, coming in, I switch back to Lapras only to miss Hydro Pump and barely survive a Rock Slide on 1 health. I switch back to Hypno, the Rhydon misses Horndrill, and I land a Hypnosis before KOing the Rhydon with 2 Psychics. Now that we've gotten all 8 badges, we only have 1 level cap until Elite 4. That would be against Rival 7, whose level cap is 54. I head back to Route 22 for our next encounter against our rival. I send out Lapras against his Sandslash and quickly take it out with Surf. Ice Beam KOs the Execute that comes in next. The incoming Ninetales outspeeds and hits me with Ember, which burns, but it goes down in 1 hit from Hydro Pump. The next Cloyster confuses me, and I switch to Snorlax after Lapras hits itself a couple times. Snorlax finishes the Cloyster with 1 Body Slam, and the Kadabra that comes in afterwards was 2. Snorlax also finishes the Jolteon, and the battle was the same tactic. Right as I entered Victory Road, I looked online to see if there was only 1 PC box in RBY, only to realize I could have changed the box this whole time. Feeling not very smart, I go back to Viridian City to change my boxes and take out all my aces. Hypno, Snorlax, Dragonair, Lapras, Venusaur, and Nidoqueen. I teach the HM Strength to Snorlax, replacing Headbutt, and start the last gauntlet of the game. As much as I would like to say the gauntlet was grueling and very difficult, not a single trainer was able to put any of my Pokemon in danger, and the most eventful things were my final encounter and collecting TMs. I ran out of Great Balls while trying to catch my final encounter, Onix, and ended up just chucking the Master Ball at it. I hope the Onix feels very special. With Victory Road cleared, I made it to the Elite 4 and decided to use up all my useful TMs on my Pokemon after leveling them up to the final level cap of 58. During this, I finally had Dragonair evolve into Dragonite. I teach my Pokemon powerful moves like Earthquake for Nidoqueen, Body Slam for Dragonite, and Blizzard for Lapras. Now I'm ready for the Elite 4. First is Lorelei, and I lead with Venusaur. Razorleaf doesn't one-shot the Dugong, but Lorelei sees that her Pokemon is low health and opts to use a Super Potion instead of attacking. This lets us kill with a second Razorleaf before they can attack. Next out is Cloyster, but a single Razorleaf takes it out. Slowbro is out next, and it's another HKO. Once Jinx comes out, however, I know it's time to switch. I go into Snorlax and get put to sleep. Snorlax doesn't wake up right away, and the Jinx is able to take them down to critical health. I switch in Hypno and manage to put the Jinx to sleep despite being confused right away. Jinx is then taken out by 2 Psychics that both hit through confusion, and Lorelei sends out her final Pokemon, Lapras. I missed the first hypnosis on it, but hit the second, and proceed to take it out with another 2 psychics. With this, Lorelei is defeated, and I heal my Pokemon with items, as I'm allowed to during the Elite Four, and move on to the next trainer. The next trainer is Bruno, and I lead again with Venusaur. I would go into detail about this fight, but Bruno is just a joke, and I sweep his entire team with just Razorleaf. Third up is Agatha, and since only the last Gengar on her team knows a Psychic-type move, I opt to lead with Nidoqueen. Earthquake and Body Slam have no issue taking out her first 4 Pokemon, but then the Gengar with Psychic comes in. I switch Dragonite into a Psychic, then try to attack. Sadly, Gengar outspeeds and uses Confuse Ray on my Dragonite, which in turn hits itself in Confusion. I know that if I hit myself in Confusion again and get attacked, I could lose Dragonite, so I switch to Lapras. Lapras is immediately put to sleep and is subsequently confused while asleep. Once Lapras wakes up, they miss their first Blizzard and hit themselves in Confusion the next turn. With Lapras now in kill range, I switch to Hypno, who is able to take out the Gengar in 2 Psychics. With Agatha defeated, I can move on to Lance. I led with Dragonite on Lance's Gyarados. I outsped and one-shot with Thunderbolt, then switched to Venusaur on upcoming Dragonair. It took a bit longer to KO with Razorleaf than I would have liked, so I switched to Lapras for the second Dragonair to immediately KO with Ice Beam. The incoming Aerodactyl outspeeds and goes for Hyper Beam, but it doesn't crit, so Lapras is in no danger and retaliates with a powerful Surf to defeat it. Lance then sends out his ace and final Pokemon, his Dragonite. Not wanting to risk being hit with Thunder, I switch to Snorlax. Hyper Beam hits Snorlax hard, but since it didn't KO, Dragonite has to take a turn to recharge. Snorlax does a good chunk of damage with Body Slam, but on the next turn, Dragonite hits with a scarily powerful critical hit Blizzard, which leaves my Snorlax with just 11 HP. However, the Body Slam my Snorlax uses on the same turn also gets a critical hit and secures us to victory. What luck! That means we're heading to the champion, the final showdown with our rival. As he did last time, our rival leads with a Sandslash. We send out Lapras, outspeed, and take it out with a Surf. Alakazam is out next and uses Kinesis to lower accuracy. Despite this, we still hit with a Blizzard and an Ice Beam. After one miss, a second Ice Beam secures the KO. Executor comes out next, and I opt to switch to Hypno after missing with my very next Ice Beam. I land one attack before deciding to use Hypnosis. However, I miss twice and the incoming damage gets me to switch again. This time I shift into Snorlax and take out the Executor with a single Body Slam. My rival sends out Cloyster next and lands a critical hit Ice Beam on Snorlax. Hoping Ice Beam won't kill, I switch into Dragonite. Sadly, Ice Beam does kill, and I have to send out a new Pokemon. Since Dragonite took the hit, I can send in a new Pokemon safely. I switch to Venusaur, and I'm able to outspeed and kill with Razorleaf. Ninetales comes out next, and I switch to Lapras to KO with Surf. Unfortunately, Ninetales lands Fire Spin and Lapras cannot move for a number of turns. As Fire Spin is a 70% accuracy move, I bank on a miss and try to attack the next turn with Surf. Sadly, Lapras does not outspeed, and Ninetales lands another Fire Spin which feints our Lapras. Lapras' sacrifice will not be forgotten, and I believe that, during the Elite Four, they certainly lived up to their expectations. Gyarados would be proud to have such a fine stand-in. I sent in Snorlax and hit 2 Body Slams in a row, KOing the Ninetales. If the Ninetales had kept using and landing Fire Spin, then Snorlax might not have made it either. Last but not least, our rival sends in Jolteon. Jolteon has an amazing speed stat and powerful moves, thus making it very scary in the late game. My next Body Slam, however, paralyzed it, which cut its speed into a third. With a Lucky Myth on Thunder, Snorlax finishes everything off with one last Body Slam, granting me the victory and ending this challenge as the new champion of the Pokemon League. Now that I've beaten Pokemon Yellow, I have another challenge in mind for Gen 2 that not many people seem to have done yet. If you want to see more of this kind of content, I'd appreciate it if you left a comment. Thank you so very much for watching, and that's all I have for you today.